Hi, everyone.
Hi, we're using our fancy technology.
I see them. Look at that.
I feel like I'm on a 7. Look at that HD resolution.
That's cool.
So before we start on the public portion of the meeting, I wanted to highlight guest house as the mission moment, but I wanted to let you guys do that if you wanted to, because I know that's been a huge heavy lift on your guys' side if you wanted to highlight that or.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think Taria would be a great person to do that. That's a lot.
Taria, would that give you some joy today?
That would definitely fill my cup. Yes, ma'am.
All right, well then I will tag to you. I'll do the land acknowledgement and then tag to you for the mission moment.
How's everyone doing? Great. Love the silence.
Live in the
Pretty
dream.
I need to teach Emily and Mitch how to bump the tunes like I used to. The musical interlude.
That is a good idea. Mitch, if you know what to do.
Do some training.
I could offer to sing, but I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, we won't know until you try.
Not funny.
Honestly, though, I feel like a really great all COC like bonding experience for the advisory council and the board and the coalition might be karaoke night. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. We do have these fancy TVs that could be turned into karaoke machines. I think we could rent something. I'm feeling a really exciting holiday party theme. Like boogie oogie, I don't know, keep it open mind. I see it churning in Sharon's head. We've got some ideas. I'll be the hostess with the mostest.
Well, I'm gonna give us a couple minutes to let people join us. I know it's 3:01, but we also have a fairly light agenda on the first half and a pretty heavy agenda on the second half. So I'm not gonna stress starting a couple minutes late. Let's see.
Jessica, this is Emily. As soon as you kick it off, I will share the PowerPoint and you can flow through that.
Yes, Julie, I'm just seeing your message about our conference space. This is our small conference space. We hope that if you haven't been to our offices, you might join us at our open house and ribbon cutting next week, and you will have a chance to see all the fancy digs.
I think we're waiting on one more for quorum, if I can count correctly. And Felix, hi, I saw you just joined us. Just to let you know, the meeting is divided in two parts. So the first half is a work session and the second half is the public portion of the meeting. And that's where we had your presentation, was to the whole COC, not just the advisory council. So you are welcome to share anything you want to share with just the advisory council now, or you can have 54 minutes of your day back and hop back on at 4 o'clock. Emily, am I counting right? Am I waiting on one more?
Correct.
Okay, just checking. Lisa tricked me. Let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to keep us waiting any longer, and we will skip the consent agenda item and just move forward with the agenda as discussion items. And if we get quorum, we can vote on the minutes. Otherwise, we can postpone it to next month. So welcome. It's 3:09. It's not really an official call to order, but 3:09, we're going to start the meeting. The first item that we have, skipping the consent agenda, is the discussion of the special notice of funding opportunity. And I'm not sure who from ACH was going to talk about that, but I did just want to highlight for the group that we will need to have a special meeting once those once those program applications are scored, because we will need to approve that as a COC. So we will, as part of this discussion, schedule a special meeting for that. And with that, I would hand off to whomever is making that report.
Hello, I believe Julie's going to speak about it, but I am going to show the slides. But Julie, if you want to start talking, if you don't have the slides, I believe I do, and I can pull those out.
Actually, so the slides that we had, sorry, this is Meg, were for the next part of the meeting on the NOFO. There's some information about the special NOFO that needs to be shared now. Sorry, guys, I know it's really confusing. We say SNOFO and NOFO way more. We sound really ridiculous. I feel like we have clown names, NOFO and SNOFO. So Julie, are you ready to share what you need to about the special notice of funding opportunity?
Sure, I can share some information about that. It's definitely been taking some switching mindset to move from one to the other. Those of you who have been working with us on those know that it's been a bit of a challenge having two NOFOs running almost concurrently. Right now, we have received all of the SNOFO applications. Those are the project applications that must be submitted to the COC by the appropriate deadline, which was Thursday, the 15th. And now we have reached the eSNAPS portion of that will be coming up soon for those project applications. But first, the Rankin Review Committee will meet to review those applications and score them and create a priority listing just as we do for the NOFO. And so that process will begin here probably by Friday or over the weekend. I'll be getting out all of the materials to the review committee so that they have that time to review those. And then we will come together on October 3rd and discuss those. And then after that time, the priority listing will be released, I believe, on October 4th. And so, and then in the meantime, we will also need to put together a collaborative application for the SNOFO. And so we will be working through connecting with folks to get answers to those questions. And we will need that approval. We were looking at from the advisory council, it looks like by about Tuesday, October 11th. So that we can begin our submission into eSNAPS on the 13th and be finished by at least early the next week, because we do have Alaska Day on the 18th. The final submission date is October 20th, but we definitely don't want to be doing anything on that last day. So our hope is really to get it done by the 17th so that we can sit back and relax and not be scurrying around there at the end. So that's what I have for the SNOFO, except for we do have the Unsheltered Severe Service Needs Plan draft that has been on the ACEH website under NOFO, which I know a lot of folks have had an opportunity to read and provide any comments. If there are additional comments to that, we are planning on finalizing that document by tomorrow. And so you could send those comments to me, or in the draft itself, you may see that there is another contact, but definitely you can send them to me and I'll forward them to the right place to make sure that the any update is made. And that's it for the SNOFO.
Sarah is muted. All right, so it sounds like we need to schedule a special meeting for 10:11. That time, okay. Sorry, I was taking notes during that.
Jessica, you now have a quorum.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, so does anyone have any conflicts or challenges with scheduling a special meeting for October 11th for the COC approval of the collaborative application for the special NOFO? I can't call it SNOFO, I'm sorry. Special NOFO or any other agenda items that you think should be added to that special meeting. I think it can be a pretty brief meeting if all we're doing is reviewing that application and then the ultimate approval. Maybe
Did you say
45 minutes.
October 11th?
October 11th.
What time?
I'd be inclined to push for maybe 4 to 5 and then figure that we will probably end it after about 45 minutes unless there's pretty intense discussion on it.
That sounds good to me.
I know
I
we get better attendance when it's before 5 o'clock and people can make it part of their regular day versus trying to schedule it after normal business hours. All right, well, I'm going to move backwards in the, I guess if anyone has any questions for Julie or anyone else on the ACH team about the special NOFO process or the collaborative application. I know Julie did share, and I would encourage anyone who hasn't already gone out and looked at it on the ACH website under the NOFO section. There is a link to the document that she was talking about, and I would encourage anyone to go out and read that. If you haven't gotten a request yet or haven't seen that there's an opportunity to submit a letter of support, I believe there's a template on the web page also for organizations to submit a letter of support. All right, I don't see any questions. I'm gonna hop back to agenda item number 2 and ask for any updates or changes to the agenda. All right, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda item.
This is Susie. I make a motion to approve.
Sharon seconds motion.
Thank you. I would ask for unanimous consent on that, so please unmute or state your opposition if you have it. And not hearing anything, approved. All right, so now we're going to go back to agenda item 3. So we had a bullet for past meeting action items follow-up, including the sanctioned camping work group. I know that when Centennial Campground was opened in July, some of that work went a little to the wayside, and I don't believe that the work group had been meeting regularly while we were working on a unsheltered plan and also just trying to respond to a free campground in real time. But I wanted to bring it back to the group and bring it back to discussion if we wanted to work on bringing that conversation back And if that work group felt very strongly about getting leadership in and moving forward with the work that had been started, I know that Centennial Campground was one of the campgrounds that was being looked at by that particular work group. So I know we have a lot of lessons learned now. And we also have some great research that early on in this, Meg had shared from HUD on some best practices around sanctioned camping. So I would open it up to people who've been participating in that work group and wanted to share.
This is Roger. So I'd like to just express how much we've learned in the last 10, 11 weeks, and that we're still in the midst of some very challenging areas moving these folks. And then while I would like to see the designated camp work group formed, this might not be the time for it. It might be a month or two down the road or closer to spring, unless anyone else has further thoughts on that.
I'm not seeing any hands. I agree with you, Roger. I think that this is really important work, and I think we have learned so many lessons and have so much more information than we did before on the challenges and the interventions needed and the mitigations that need to be put in place if we are going to have an authorized or sanctioned camp. So I would love to see the work and the conversation continue. And I think that once we're past the closure of the campground and we see how that process goes and what lessons we learn in that process, that would be perfect to bring this back. I'm with you, maybe, sometime in March. Oh.
Yeah, we certainly learned a lot of things that didn't work. Still analyzing the things that might have maybe worked a little bit.
So I'm just going to read the comments. Julia states, recommend we reconvene no later than January to be prepared for early camping in late March. And then Meg shared that the timing may make sense to run parallel to the Anchored Home strategic planning. So the work is running alongside each other, and there can be a natural place for talking about the incorporation into Anchored Home. I see Sid, hands up.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Roger for a very thoughtful post he put on Centennial Park Campers Facebook page this week. He's outlined a number of issues that this group would be well advised to address in the future, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's called Centennial Park Campers on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. I second that. It was a very thoughtful post and brought up a lot of the experiences that Roger has had out at the campground and then just with this entire process. Meg, is the timing for the planning work on Anchored Home, would that align with that work group starting back up in January?
I think so. Anchored Home is meant to kick off now, but we're doing an emergency shelter task force. So all things being equal, once we survive the NOFO SNOFO process, we'll probably kick off in November. We have a little bit more of a runway to get really going than you all might. So yeah, January, with the hope that by February, March, we're really talking about consensus and plan adoption.
Okay. And I know we had originally set those meetings to be every other Wednesday and then ended up with them conflicting with the Assembly Committee, the Housing and Homelessness Committee. So I would just recommend that when we start it back up, it not be on a Wednesday, or at least not on a Wednesday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. But so going to look for consensus here, looking to start this back up, maybe the second week of January after the holidays. And prior to starting them back up in December, sending out a poll to identify with all of the COC members, anyone who's interested, what date and time availability works best for them, just doing it in blocks. And then setting some time from there and getting those on the schedule for the regular meetings again, starting that second week in January. I'm not seeing any shaking heads and I'm not hearing anybody say no. So that will be what we will put. So look for, we will all forget about it by then, I'm sure. Look for a poll to come out in December, looking for availability. And we will start those back up in January, and through that process, work really closely with community prioritization and the work that's happening in Anchored Home to make sure that unsheltered camping is part of that conversation. All right, moving to committee check-ins and updates. We will go with who I see first, which is Sid.
Well, after spending a couple of months sitting on our hands, Julie and Helen wanted to make certain that we didn't stay lazy any longer. And so we were fortunate enough to attract Caleb Kupek, Robert Dahl, and Taylor Donovan to help us score the HUD NOFA applications. And my report's pretty comprehensive. I recommend that you read it, but just a couple of highlights. Our job was to read 7 essay responses. Now, everyone on this group has gone to school. Everyone in this school has had teachers grade essay responses. It's very interesting how difficult it was for many people to respond to the question that HUD was asking. So anytime you want a HUD grant, especially one that's so complicated to apply for, so for a few dollars, just answer the question. The most challenging question this time was, what are you doing about equity? Eloquence was a marvelous display throughout this process, but eloquence without action doesn't really cut it with HUD. So I think we all have to do a lot of thinking about how do we deal with equity in the housing programs that we all administer. How do we graduate people out of this funding stream and into other funding streams? Because HUD's objective is to build a strong integrated continuum of care where their grants are leveraged with other people's grants to help people lead more successful lives. So the team actually did a beautiful job of scoring the 7 questions. But when we got together and started scratching our heads, we wondered, how is it that some people can write incredibly good answers to questions that weren't asked and pretty mediocre answers to questions that were? So just we're thinking about next time you're staring at one of these HUD applications, answer the question concisely, explicitly. And if you got a number to support it, stick that in there too. Anyway, it's a lovely team. We can't hardly wait to come back and score another set of essays next week. Goodness gracious, this is so much fun. Thanks. No, and I'll take questions.
Thank you, Sid. I will say that I so greatly appreciate the work that the Compliance Committee has been doing and the willingness of everyone to go through the rank and review process, because I've never done rank and review for COC projects, but I have done so much rank and review for other projects, and it takes a very special bit of patience and love to do that work.
It was a great team. And Julie and Helen are to be complimented for digging into such complex subjects in real time. This was not an academic exercise for ACH's staff. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Helen.
And I'm just going to read a few comments out of the chat. Laura had a question of the equity policy of ACH and that grantees rely on guidance from ACH for these policies as well. And then Meg just shared that ACH does not have that responsibility of writing COC equity policy. The COC has written policies and procedures, and if they don't already have provisions in there addressing equity, we can make those updates to the policies and procedures to either address equity completely or better than it is right now. And she shared that Tawny can share those. I'm pretty sure they're on our website also, the advisory council section of the ACH website. So I will make sure that if they're not up there, they get up there and are shared out with the group also. All right, next the list I see Sharon. So data.
Sorry, me? Okay. Okay, well, the committee didn't meet. We were supposed to meet yesterday. I didn't have any agenda items, and neither did Celia that were particularly urgent. So I don't like to just meet because we're supposed to meet every month. And but that is something I do want to discuss with the committee next time we meet, possibly shifting to a bi-monthly meeting schedule. Since the last time the committee met, I attended this HUD had one of these technical advisory training kinds of sessions on the issue of data equity. How to go about doing that for COCs, which was interesting. And I didn't fully attend the second one because it started at 6 a.m. So I turned on my Zoom and then fell back asleep. So I'm looking forward to seeing the recording and the slides of that. But so that will be something. Yes, okay. So it's another item for the data committee to look at, and we'll work on that. So, are there any other questions or comments?
Not a question, but a comment in the chat from Meg. Just states that hoping the data committee will take up how to implement the open data sharing agreement that was passed by the advisory council a few years ago, that it was one of our top HUD TA recommendations. So I think that that's been on my list too of something that I wanted to dig into and look at. So I agree with that. And I think that would make an excellent agenda item for one of the next few meetings to take a look at that agreement and see what that means. And then Julia had a question. Was that the CES prioritization and assessment workshop series?
No, I don't think that was the name of it. It was focused on equity in data collection and that kind of thing.
All right, I don't see any other questions. I will tag in Katie for community prioritization.
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Just a quick update. We are meeting next Thursday. So Dakota and I are meeting at the beginning of next week, and then the committee meets Thursday with specific plans to pick up the gap analysis and make a plan for updating that. And then also starting to think ahead to Anchored Home. As Meg mentioned, I think the task force work has kind of taken the front seat, but we do want to, be thinking ahead to Anchored Home and how we kind of translate what we're doing with the task force and other pieces into that body of work. I think that's it from us.
Thank you, Katie. I'm not seeing any questions or comments. All right, and Julia, coordinated entry, any updates?
Thanks, Jessica. Big thank you to Mac for running the meeting this month. I actually had a respiratory thing, so I missed it, but I have some notes to bring back to you all. We talked a little bit about provider to provider referrals, to niche scenario, but we're looking at our various referral processes and trying to streamline them a little bit. There had been a question about whether we might be able to include folks with recent experience with the carceral system into prioritization, and a discussion on that began. Right now, what we did was sort of knock it down the road a little bit, because there's going to be a conversation at the beginning of next month where we're talking a little bit about where are we going with coordinated entry prioritization in the future. And so we'll discuss that a little bit further at that point. And then, pardon me, I may have neglected to bring to the executive committee that we did go over the prioritization website write-up, changed a little bit of wording and approved it to be put on the website. I don't know that it needed to go to this advisory council for approval, but I wanted to throw that out there quickly in case it does need to be approved by the advisory council. Otherwise, no new proposals this month, and we'll start afresh next month.
Thank you. And I'm going to look at ACH right now because there was a whole email back and forth about this. And I think the decision we made was that since we weren't actually changing the policy, all we were doing was editing the wording that's published on the website. We didn't need the full advisory council approval. But I'll be honest, sometimes it all blends together.
Great. Thanks, Jessica.
All right, well, we cruised along really fast. Agenda item number 4, other issues, topics, considerations, anything anyone wanted to share. We're a little ahead of schedule, so we have a little bit of extra time for any other issues that we may want to discuss. And I will just share, if you didn't notice it, on our second half of the meeting, on the public portion of the meeting, we do have a presentation by Assemblyperson Rivera on the emergency shelter task force work. So we do have that scheduled for the second half, that he'll be presenting that information. All right,
Hey, this is Mike Courtney. Can I jump in for just a minute?
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Celia and to Jessica and to Laura Cox for joining us at AHFC last week with the Region 10 Public Housing Director. There was a great discussion about the EHVs and the whole process that ACH has gone through to make this such a success. And I just wanted to give out a huge thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Mike. It was actually really fun to talk to. I know that sometimes having that one-on-one connection with other providers and then directly with policy makers sometimes makes it a little easier to get through your challenges when you hear of other people having the exact same challenge. You can hear of something cool that they put in place, and HUD is listening the entire time and has insights into things that you might want to think about, or ideas of someone you could talk to. So thank you for hosting. Thank you to HFC for hosting.
I thought it was a really great conversation and your input was invaluable. So thanks so much.
I saw Meg's hand up and now I don't. Oh, no, I do still see it up. Thank you.
I'm there. Hi, guys. Hello, everybody. So I understand Felix is going to talk about the emergency shelter task force work, but I wanted to just kind of give some perspective from the coalition perspective, or from point of view, sorry, not double perspectives, but just from the point of view, because we convened. And first, I would like to say thank you to the task force. You know, there's nothing like getting the great opportunity to bring together a group to come up with some solutions to a really tough problem in a really condensed timeline. So, you know, all of the work, we can put where you can find it is all online if you're not aware of it or if you didn't participate. The recommendations were presented to the Assembly yesterday at the committee meeting. However, we had kind of issued preliminary recommendations and then we did a little bit of revision to those. I just want to say that, you know, regardless of the policy decisions that may get made around what might be turned on this winter as a response, I think the task force did an exceptional job of keeping the focus on the people experiencing homelessness, the issue before it. And I mean, I think that was very apparent when we didn't even consider, you know, that perhaps we would have such pushback from hockey. It hadn't really even been a consideration. We were just coming up with the best facility to do the thing that we needed to do. I'm also really thrilled that the recommendations reflected a multifaceted approach. You know, we had providers step forward with some capacity expansion, which is always generous and great that that's possible. And then we put a housing solution forward. And that we continue to explore housing solutions when we pick the work back up in October. So we'll be picking it back up on October 3rd. The tenor of the task force will change a bit, really looking even further ahead. We've made 90-day recommendations. So now we're looking, you know, what can we do in this 90 days and forward? This is really the precursor to Anchored Home, if there ever was one. Like, what are we doing that is very person and solutions oriented? So I invite you to join us if you have the time. We're only going to meet once a week instead of twice. And I think this will be the part where we have more room for creativity and really digging into you know, just a little bit more lead time and really thinking about things and starting to learn more about who we're talking about, because I think that was one of the challenges is we don't have great data about those who are unsheltered. We never got data of, you know, about who was at Centennial Campground. And so as we move through this process, really want to invite you to engage, be with us. I would welcome you all, or if you know someone else who has a really great perspective or some ideas, or even if you can't commit to being on the task force, email the ideas. It's really an open invitation. And I am going to be turning over the primary convening of the task force to Taria Ware, which I'm really excited to do. So if there was ever systems improvement, this is it. So it fits her job title. So she's going to be picking up the primary on the convening, and I will sit more in the background, crunching some numbers and working housing pro formas and really working on the housing aspect of it. But I'm really excited to engage in the next piece of it. And I just want to acknowledge, I know a lot of people were disappointed where the policy decision landed, because we did all that work and we had high expectations. And, you know, I just want to acknowledge that this is a tough route to go back to potentially going back to the Sullivan Arena. I think we just need to make space to absorb that that's what one of the options is. And I haven't fully come to any kind of anything with it yet. I'm just still absorbing it, frankly. I've had the opportunity to speak to 2 community groups today, and I really stress that I'm worried about the trauma for people experiencing homelessness being asked to go back there, especially if they were bused from there to Centennial and then to be bused back, and to really not only provide the people who are going to have their lives kind of turned upside down again a lot of grace, but also to you all, because this is hard. this is really hard. So we just had that conversation with folks, 2 different community groups today, and just saying, you know, that I'm happy there will be a warm, dry place, but we're not necessarily happy with where I'm not necessarily happy with the where. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
I appreciate that. And I will fully admit that it's actually really hard not to cry right now thinking about it. It's really hard. It's 100% not the outcome that, or at least not the total outcome that I wanted. And I feel like we did a lot of work to try to identify a safer option and a less traumatizing option, because people who are experiencing homelessness, and especially unsheltered homelessness, have been through trauma that we cannot even imagine. And to almost purposely inflict more trauma feels so terrible to me. But I am happy that there will be a safe place, and it'll be warm, and it'll be dry, and there will be food, and we will all just work to do better. I see Sharon's hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision to go back to the Sullivan rather than the Dempsey is, you know, to me, it's a very instructive example of the power of special interests. Because I mean, the community adjacent to the Sullivan suffered a lot of offsite impacts that I don't think the municipality adequately addressed. And you know, are they going to get more of that? Another 6-7+ months of that? I think it's time to, well, I mean, I guess the decision's already been made, but it's just some neighborhoods seem to take it in the shorts over and over again, and others seem to be that are more privileged, seem to have advantages.
I do think it's important to state that it's not actually, I mean, it seems like it's decided. It isn't actually decided yet. I mean, there will be a meeting on Monday. There will be public testimony. There will be a vote. I encourage everyone to, however you are comfortable doing it, make your voice heard and make your case, whether that's sending an email to the assembly, whether that's coming in person and providing testimony, whether that is signing up for phone testimony. I encourage everyone. I'm that person who's like, I don't care who you vote for, but get out and vote. The same way, I want everyone's voice to be heard. Well, on that very somber note, does anyone have any other issues or topics? Oh, Meg's still hand.
I forgot, we have to celebrate. The guest house is open.
Yes.
Housing 130 units of permanent housing, folks. Like,
that is a wonderful way to close this. And Meg, you weren't on right away. Taria is going to share that as the mission moment in the public portion.
Great.
She promised me it would give her joy. So
good. But yes, like every time we kind of get down about this moment, I am just remembering that all those lease ups happened. The housed numbers next month that we are able to report out of September are going to be so big. It is so cool. I'm so excited if you can't tell. So, and then we're ready to do it again. I mean, that's the cool thing. It was like we piloted it, it worked, it's working. And now we get to figure out how to do it all over again, which is super exciting because this is lots of housing very fast, especially for Anchorage. So,
yes.
Anyway, so it's hard to be like infectiously excited through Zoom, but it's what I'm going for. So, yeah, anyway, I wanted to celebrate that with you all because in a lot of ways, all of your work culminates in that because we're able to take all of those building blocks and that's the result. And it's so cool.
Nothing would make me happier than to close the Sullivan Arena because we have created 150 units of housing.
I think that's our challenge. I think that's the task force challenge right there. Let's just close it down because we've housed everyone. That's obsolete. I think that's a great way to think about it, Jessica.
All right, well, if no one has anything else they want to jump in with, we will end the work session a couple minutes early and reconvene back here at 4 for our public portion, because it is really full. We have the NOFO conversation as well as the presentation from the task force. So I am going to start it pretty promptly at 4 o'clock so that we can get through everything. So I will see everyone back in 10 minutes. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We do have a pretty full agenda today, so I am going to go ahead and get started, and we will likely have a few people join us here in the first few minutes. So just wanted to take this opportunity at the beginning of the meeting to thank our ACEH members, our partners, the members of the public who joined us today, and everyone who is a part of the Anchorage Continuum of Care. We are so grateful for all of the work that you do. So I'm going to start off with a land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to hand it over to Taria with ACEH for our mission moment. So land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the Indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture and appreciation for the past and present Indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. The Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness and the Homeless Prevention and Response System Advisory Council would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina. And if Taria, there she is. So hand to Taria for our mission moment.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I am just extremely excited. I think Meg said earlier she wanted it to be contagious. Not sure if it is, but we are just proud to really take time out to be excited about the guest house. So it's 130 units of leased housing for those persons that we know were experiencing homelessness. And if you don't remember, it started in May 1st with an appropriation that allowed a transitional living program pretty much to happen at the guest house. And they have been living there, some of them since May, others have come in either from Centennial Park or from the Sullivan Arena or from just other unsheltered homelessness situations. And now they have leases, they have rental history, they have a home to call their own. So this work would not happen without all of you, all of our partners. ACEH provided the technical assistance, but truly even to dream about 130 more units of housing in Anchorage, it takes the whole HPRS. And so thank you for the time for us to share our contagious joy about the guest house. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Taria. I think that it's contagious joy and infectious joy. And I hope that everybody feels that. And I think that anytime we can focus on these wins, at least for me, it really helps my heart. Yeah. So exciting for everyone, and such a huge, heavy lift that everybody did to make that happen. Moving to the Advisory Council Chair Report, I will run through a few quick updates, but I think the two big topics that we have right now are both going to be discussed in depth at the rest of this meeting. The two funding opportunities that we had, the NOFO and then the special NOFO, and then also the work of the Emergency Shelter Task Force, which we will have a presentation by the task force later in this meeting. For general HPRS updates, I wanted to welcome our two new counselors, Robin and Andy. I'm scrolling down the list to see if they were able to join us today, but if they weren't, we will definitely catch them at the next meeting. I also wanted to share that we do still have one vacant seat. So if you are not a counselor and you're interested in that, or if you know someone who may be interested in that, please make sure you share that information with them. The application is on the ACEH website. There is a sub page for the Advisory Council work, and the application is on there. Quickly sharing the work that the committees have been working on over the past 30 days. The compliance committee has been hard at work with rank and review for the regular NOFO, and will soon be starting work on the rank and review for the special NOFO. Also bringing to light and having conversations about equity in housing and how do we move people along the continuum in a way that amplifies that. The data committee didn't meet this month, but they are looking forward to meeting next month and potentially moving to a different meeting cycle. And then the chair of that group did attend that. She attended a webinar on COC data equity. So that is definitely something that is a recurring theme and trend in everything that we are looking at as a COC right now. The Community Prioritization Committee will be meeting next Thursday and looking at the work of the task force and integrating that work into the work on Anchored Home, which will be moving forward after this month. And then the Coordinated Entry Committee met and has been looking at the prioritization and also did a review and update of the coordinated entry description on the website for the public to be able to see. All right, on that, we will, and Julia did share in the chat that the Coordinated Entry Committee meets the first Friday of each month. I would encourage anyone, if there is a committee that you have heard about or you're interested in or want to hear more about, please reach out and let us know. The committees are open to all members of the COC. You do not have to be on the advisory council to be part of one of those committees, and we welcome input and feedback from everyone on that committee work. Going to hand off to Meg, who may hand off further for the ACE report.
Hi, everyone. It is nice to see you. My report's going to be really short because you're going to hear about a lot of it in the primary opportunities. So the government update has really been the Emergency Shelter Task Force. You know, as Assemblymember Felix Rivera is here to present about that, but just a quick background. In August, we were asked to stand that up as the coalition, be the convener, and we had over 30 task force members join us around the question of what to do this upcoming winter to address the fact that we have 350 plus unsheltered individuals in our community. So I'm going to leave the details to him. I will share that we have a task force website as part of the coalition's page, and I will get that in the chat. Recordings are there, documents are there. We really wanted to show everyone how we worked through that process and those recommendations. You know, I didn't catch this. There are no facilitation updates because facilitation had its end a while ago. But that doesn't mean that we still aren't collaborating. And right now that collaboration and that work, particularly close work with the municipality, is through the Emergency Shelter Task Force. Operational updates, we do have a few. Many of you may know our outreach coordinator, Ryan, is leaving us soon. We are very sad about that. He has been an amazing asset in coordinating outreach, connecting with clients, and really, you know, just really inspiring. And I have to say, I'm sad to see him go, but that's okay. We're going to push forward. One of the things we really saw possible with him on our team, and we still see possible, is this enhanced street outreach. We got a significant grant from the municipality to be able to contract with 5 outreach teams of 2 individuals each, and then an additional medical overlay on that, plus have a significant kind of bank of funds to meet client needs, work through transportation, food, deploy HMIS in the field using tablets, and then some direct connections with CE. So that'll be coming soon. So we'll have that staff shift, and then we'll work on implementing that new program. We're just getting close to inking our grant contracts with the municipality to get that going. So we're really excited about that. We're hoping this fulfills kind of HUD's expectations of outreach, that outreach be at the forefront, be robust, be ready to meet kind of any need we encounter that could be in the way of getting someone to engage deeply with us, so that we can move to housing, really from outreach to housing, and really working that system the best we can. So I'm excited for that to start soon. So we will be bugging you all when we put out the RFPs for the outreach teams, and we'll be looking for your feedback continuously as we stand that up. But we're really excited about that. And that's it from us.
Thank you, Meg. And I know we talked about this at the last meeting, but just, I feel like I need to keep highlighting that you guys have an open house coming up.
Okay, now I'm a terrible executive director. I apologize. We have this open house next Wednesday from 4 to 6. We want to celebrate the generosity of Providence that gave us these beautiful offices to do this work. That Tani from our staff has done such a good job getting fully wired in. We have some real cool tech, and we have a really cool space. So we hope you can join us. So that will be a celebration. We will be focused on the successes, the guest house, complex care, and how we're moving forward. So there will be a bright spot next week, and we do really hope you will join us. Thanks.
Yeah, especially, I just want to add, because we have a community training space that was made in part possible by Alaska Community Foundation. I think Meg just mentioned that. So in the future, we're looking forward to hosting more community events for our partners as well, our CRC partners. So we want you to be able to see the space.
So everyone go check out the space so that you can plan some trainings. All right, I'm going to hand off over to Assemblyperson Rivera. He is here to make a presentation on the Emergency Shelter Task Force work. And you should have screen share ability for you to share your presentation.
Yes, I do. Thanks. All right, let me go ahead and get this up. Okay, so some of this is going to be old news or repeat for folks here, but happy to be here and happy to present and speak about the Emergency Shelter Task Force recommendations. For folks who don't know, my name is Felix Rivera. I serve on the Anchorage Assembly, but now I'm speaking in my capacity as a member of the Emergency Shelter Task Force, and specifically the communication subgroup. We also have with us today Daryl Hess, who is a part of the communication subgroup of the task force as well. So this presentation that I'm going to be going through is actually given yesterday at the Assembly's Housing and Homelessness Committee, which I chair. Oops, don't go too far. One slide, thanks. Okay, so the purpose of the task force was charged and created by the Assembly in August to find solutions for the winter season for adults experiencing unsheltered homelessness. One of the things that we asked of the task force was to have recommendations to us by September 21st, the committee meeting yesterday, and thankful that we were able to do so. One of the things that's really important to realize about the task force is that their role was to come up with recommendations and give them to the policymakers. Policymakers' role is to make the decisions. So the task force definitely wants to be clear about their role, their lane in all of this work. The task force is comprised of a whole host of different community members, I think there were 40 regular attendees to our meetings, and you can see on the screen, they include providers, policymakers, representatives from the health department. We also had some folks with lived experience who attended. So it was a good range of folks who were at the table and really working to find solutions. The task force met twice a week. And in between those meetings, there were a variety of subcommittees who were doing a lot of work. So that includes facilities. That subcommittee reviewed, I think John Weddleton said at the committee meeting yesterday, 100 different facilities to see which ones might be appropriate as emergency shelter sites for the coming winter. The task force also had a subcommittee dealing with operations because, of course, with opening and up and standing up any emergency shelter comes the need to fund that. And that was something that, sitting as a policymaker, something that was important for us to have as well, so that we can make sound decisions. There was also a communications and community engagement subcommittee, and here we are now presenting to you all. Did a lot of extensive work, extending community councils, held a press event, did a lot of outreach to, particularly around folks, businesses, institutions, homeowners close to the Dempsey and the Golden Lion, so that they were aware of those recommendations from the task force. There was a data subcommittee that reviewed data for relevant assumptions, just to make sure, as all of these decisions are made, that they are data driven. And then there was a subcommittee that focused on lived experience, and they held multiple events at different facilities. I think they also held an event at the Centennial Park Campground as well, at shelters, at housing projects, to try to get feedback with folks with lived experience. So a lot of different work went into the recommendations that were presented yesterday. So the goals and outcomes of the task force, really simple, right? Find places that are feasible to implement this winter, that reduce the risk of exposure to winter conditions for persons experiencing homelessness, that, if possible, really look to the future as we try to solve the immediate, meaning try to get people into housing as much as possible, and provide recommendations that will be seriously considered by the Assembly and the Mayor, and that will have public support. So the task force, in its review of all the different facilities, had some minimum criteria. So those included things like requiring 24/7 access, meals, showers, requiring the use of HMAS data, as I spoke to earlier, data and making sure our processes are very data driven. And then possibility of room for a warming tent. And then we also initially looked at the 150 limitation as a criteria, with the understanding that the Assembly could, if they so choose, go beyond that 150 limit as set in code. Okay, so there is the problem statement that the task force was charged with solving was dealing around 350 unsheltered individuals. And we know that in that 350, there are a variety of factors, including people who maybe aren't going to want to take advantage of shelter immediately, people who are getting their PFDs, they might have gotten it direct deposit, or they're going to be getting it soon if they got paper checks. And we know that around this time of year, individuals will use their PFDs to go to hotels for a certain amount of time. So there are a variety of different factors, but we do know generally that 350 was the target number. If you look at who is experiencing unsheltered homelessness right now, this slide shows you a little bit of the data of what we know. There are a variety of unknowns. I think to date, the data for the folks staying at the Centennial Park Campground is not reflected in this. I'm not exactly sure on that, but this is the best data that we have so far. So getting into the actual recommendations from the task force. So there were two types of recommendations made: tier 2 recommendations, which this slide covers, and tier 1 recommendations. So tier 2 recommendations are places that primarily private locations that could be stood up within 90 days. And they're tier 2 because they can't be stood up by October 1, which was the requirement for the tier 1 locations. So you can see on here a list of a variety of different possible locations that were reviewed by the task force as tier 2 options. And as I understand it, the task force is going to be meeting again in October, early October, to continue their look at tier 2 and really into the future long-term solutions as well. So that gets us to the tier 1 recommendations, which could be stood up by October 1st. So as you can see, those are primarily MOA-owned facilities that can be stood up by October 1st. There are, I guess of note here, the Golden Lion, the task force recommendation was that really be looked at as a housing option. And I believe that is what the Assembly will be proposing. Well, this is what I will be proposing. We'll see what the Assembly says. And of note also on here is that the rec centers, specifically the Spenard and Fairview rec centers, were withdrawn from consideration by the mayor. So I think that was initially on the list, but was I think redacted was the term used because the mayor withdrew their consideration. All of these meet the Emergency Shelter Task Force minimum criteria. There was also some tier 1 recommendations that dealt with existing program capacity and expanding that capacity. And big thanks to these organizations listed for being willing to do that work. As I said earlier, one of the things that's helpful for policymakers is to have some idea of budget. And so the task force did a lot of work looking at the numbers, looking at the assumptions, and trying to come up with some ballpark budget and operational assessments so policymakers could make wise decisions. And so you can see a lot of those listed there. I think there might be a slide that better presents this in a chart format. There it is. So as you can see, this chart looks at the various possibilities from a budget standpoint, from the most expensive to the least expensive. Of note, if you look at the most expensive, that includes MOA-owned congregate shelter, leased congregate shelter, and leased non-congregate shelter. And then as you go down, the least expensive being different housing options. This chart are the preliminary recommendations that were provided to the Assembly. As folks know, okay. And the task force also did a lot of work looking into the recommendations brought forward by the mayor. And those include things like the mini grants, the navigation center, the portables, and they did some budget work and operational work to figure out if those might be viable or not. I think the recommendations, in the end, I think the task force came to a recommendation that the portables at this time, with the current level of information we have, don't appear to be viable. And then at the mini grants, there are, we did learn yesterday that there was only one application for a mini grant, and it's unknown how many individuals that particular application might be able to take. And the navigation center is, we're going to have that discussion again on October 25th. I think it's important to note, we did learn yesterday that none of these options would have been available by October 1. So they wouldn't even be part of our discussion. They weren't part of the discussion that we had yesterday. they will, and to some degree, be part of the discussion that we have going into the future. That was me speaking as a policymaker. Okay, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anyone who has any questions, you can feel free to raise your hand, you can unmute and just ask, or if you do not want to or are unable to say it out loud, you can type it in the chat. I'm happy to read them out loud. I see Allison.
Hey, Felix. First, I mean, thank you for your amazing leadership. I mean, and also I want to put a shout out to Meg for also the work of the coalition and really taking action. I'm one of those that have been in this for so many years, and this is even one of the first times before the snowfalls that we're even having conversations and discussions about it, which is the right way to be. So I want to thank you. I had to leave the meeting yesterday before the actual conclusion of it. I was getting the sense that there was some new information about Ben Boki that might change the idea of Dempsey. Did I misread that, or is Dempsey clearly going to go forward as kind of an option of yet to be explored?
Yeah, I'm not sure if happy is the word, but happy to speak to it. So at the end of the day, the Assembly's committee, and I'm speaking now as a policymaker, so I'm not speaking as task force right now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the Assembly's Committee on Housing and Homelessness made the following recommendations, and I'll just go to this slide right here. Well, stop it. There we go. So the Assembly's Committee did approve of the first 4 items here. That 5th item there was the recommendation from the regarding the Dempsey, and the committee did not approve of that recommendation and instead went with the Sullivan Arena at 150 capacity.
Okay. I had gotten a note to that effect, but I wasn't sure that who was the one putting forward that recommendation, and if that's what actually is being voted on Monday.
Yes, so on Monday we will be voting on the first 4 lines you see here, and then the Sullivan Arena.
Thank you.
And actually, I should make one thing clear. We're actually not going to be voting on the Brother Francis shelter because that's already been paid for. So the scratch that one. We'll vote on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th one, and then the Sullivan.
So my question is, for the Golden Lion, I know the committee landed around, I believe it was hoping for 120 in the Golden Lion. I think this is where policy and practice start to provide some friction, because if this is housing, these are leased units and you can't force anyone to have a roommate. So is there a backup plan? Is there an intention that those that can't be accommodated at Golden Lion would then there'd be enough, like, is there any openness to throttling the capacity at Sullivan Arena up or down based on what we ultimately can ultimately implement at Golden Lion? Because we had some numbers here kind of based on trying to hit some good sweet spots for, making sure we had enough capacity. So I was just kind of curious if you guys had that discussion at the end. I too had to step out at the very end of your meeting.
Thanks. So no, we did not have that discussion as a committee. I can tell you my perspective, and this probably won't be news for you, Meg. I think it will be difficult. We will get a lot of strong opposition from the North Anchorage Assembly members if we leave an opened up sort of a however many we need to at the Sullivan. So I think they're happy with the 150, and but possibly any more than that, we will get significant opposition from the North Anchorage members. It doesn't mean that we won't have the votes for it, but I think it will just make it tougher.
Okay, I appreciate that. I also do wonder, I mean, we stand behind as a task force, the Golden Line recommendation, but if that isn't implemented by the administration, we really have to start thinking about Plan B. And that was one of the reasons we did have that span on the MOA congregate facilities, because we were kind of thinking ahead to it. So hopefully we can work on some quick Plan Bs to advance so that you have something else just in case.
Thanks.
Yeah, Meg said exactly what I was thinking there as well. And I think there was a reason why the two congregate facilities we were looking at had the ability to really have a robust separation of populations, and also the ability to have a little bit higher capacity to accommodate, especially recognizing that even if you originally lease up a certain number with roommates, that doesn't mean that they will necessarily stay. And that the next person that comes in may not have a roommate or want a roommate situation. So making sure that there is some flexibility, probably beyond the 5. I think what ended up happening was an excess of 5 beds. And then the same thing around if the Golden Lion is not operational on October 1, recognizing that one of those other tiers is likely, or not tiers, one of those other tier 1 options is likely the only thing that could be stood up on October 1. So just wanting to make sure that that just keeps getting stated and reiterated over and over again. And then I don't know if this is a question for the, I don't think it's a question for the task force. Never mind. Ignore that. I'm not seeing any other hands. Anyone else with any questions? Anyone else with any discussion or comments on the presentation or on the task force work?
I just wanted to thank the Communication and Outreach Group Subcommittee. They did phenomenal job with outreach. We talked to a lot of, they talked to a lot of individuals with lived experience. They did what you would expect folks to do in vetting a plan that's going to affect the community and in a very short time and on a volunteer basis. So I really appreciate the approach that whole subcommittee took and the engagement, because I know a lot of those community council engagements weren't necessarily pleasant.
No, that's a great point, and thank you, Meg. I also we hosted a conversation at Carluck Manor, and tenants were talking about it days later, how much they really enjoyed getting to talk to the communications team, getting to share some stories, and just how valuable they felt that somebody was actually there asking their opinion on their experiences in shelter, and also what they would make different if they were to have input or help design a shelter experience. So I just want to echo that as well. That was powerful on both sides. All right, well, thank you, Felix, so much for this presentation. And I look forward to, Monday's meeting. I'm just going to say it that way. It will be a meeting. All right, we will move to the next agenda item then. We have I believe a brief presentation on the NOFO collaborative application, and then we will be having an approval vote after that. So I think we have some slides.
Julie, would you like
I recognize my name is on there, but I'm not actually presenting it.
Yeah, and actually we have a separate set of slides. Julie, would you like me to share while you talk through it?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. I need screen sharing, please. Thank you. Here. Oh. There we go. Okay. And you can all see my screen, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. This is where you see me fumble with technology a little bit. My apologies. All right. So please, Julie, go ahead.
Okay. First, I want to thank the Rank and Review Committee for their time in reviewing these project applications that we received. We really appreciate their input very much. And we can go to the next slide. And so just a little bit of background about the Rank and Review. So this Rank and Review of project applications was for the COC NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, which used to be NOFA. And it is what we have as the sort of the normal funding that we apply for the COC from HUD each year. This year, we had a much shorter window to apply for these funds. We usually have about a 90-day window. This time we only had a 60-day window, and that's because HUD also offered a special notice of funding opportunity, which they released very close to the time that the NOFO was released, just a little bit before. And then they released the NOFO and made it a very short window. So the SNOFO, as we're calling it, Special Notice of Funding Opportunity, is not part of this presentation. That will come later. We'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks when we've had a chance to rank and review those project applications. So the project applications that we receive are required to be reviewed by a rank and review committee. And the rank and review committee was made up of members of the COC, largely the compliance committee, but we also had some other community members who assisted with this as well. On the slide here, we have that some of the priorities reflected in applications were increased funding to PSH and single adult programs. That is something that we have seen previously. Some of these project applications were what they call renewals. So organizations are taking some of the work that they are already doing and then putting it into a new application format with perhaps some different questions that HUD wants to know, some of which we'll discuss about on another slide. All applicants passed the threshold requirements, and we had some YHDP projects, but they were not ranked and not eligible for expansion. And then we have a new transition application, which I don't see on the slide. It might have been a different slide that we had switched out. But we did get a very nice round of project applications so that we can move forward with submitting those to HUD with our collaborative application here in the next week or so. So we can go to the next slide. So this is the rank and review. And this is posted on our website. We are required to notify and post this on the website. And this is how HUD requires that we put together a priority listing. So it's done in tiers. You have tier 1 and tier 2. And I'm just going to pause there for just 1 second. And so as you can see, this is how the ranking occurred, and that there's a running total on the side that pulls down the funds that are available as each project application is entered into that ranking. And so this is actually the final project ranking here rather than the initial. So we can go to the next slide. So we did have one project that straddled tier 1 and 2. We can go back to the previous slide if anyone wants to see that again. So HUD does have a plan for when that happens. And so that's on the next slide there. And so this is from HUD. If a project application straddles tier 1 and tier 2 funding, HUD will conditionally select the project up to the amount of funding that falls within tier 1. Using the COC score and other factors described in the NOFO, HUD may fund the tier 2 portion of the project. If they don't fund the tier 2 portion of the project, they may award the project at a reduced amount, provided the project is still feasible with the reduced funding. So just give a little explanation there, and so we'll move to the next slide. So this is the amount of funding that that we had available to us. So they have the ARD, the annual renewal demand. That's an overall amount. And then there are calculations done for the tier 1 and tier 2 amounts. And this does not include the YHDP amount. And this is directly from the HUD ARD report. So these are the numbers that they gave us to use for the funding. And so the planning funds here, these are the COC planning funds that the COC will apply for as a project application and will submit to HUD with the collaborative application. Go to the next slide. So just some other considerations. I know that for several of the project applicants, we sent out some additional guidance that HUD was providing on some of the changes that they were making. One is that they revised rating factors for COC evaluation of racial disparities to place greater emphasis on racial equity. So racial equity is very high on the priority list for HUD, and they really wanted to see that reflected in COC applications. And then also revise the rating factors for addressing the needs of LGBTQ+ individuals and to place a greater emphasis on COCs implementing and training their providers on the COC-wide anti-discrimination policies. And so that's those are some things that HUD highlights as some sort of new things that they wanted us to take into consideration. Next slide. Okay. And then we want to thank our partners who provided input on the collaborative application. Catholic Social Services, Awake Advisory Council Leadership, Anchorage School District, CIT program, and others. And we are showing some screenshots of the draft of the collaborative application. And the full document will be on the ACEH website. So the collaborative application has numerous questions, lots of things about data, things that get pulled from PIT and HMIS. And so some of it is there that we just are entering data and then verifying that information. And so you can see these are the types of questions that they're asking, and then looking at, I think we're moving into the emergency housing voucher piece of that, making sure that we do have that in place. And then increasing capacity for non-congregate shelter, and highlighting in the application that we do have a focus on non-congregate shelter versus other types of emergency shelter. And along with those lessons learned from COVID-19, now for the collaborative application, they really want to see how we are going to springboard off of that to make sure that we do have a plan in place for public health emergency situations in the future. And so here, looking at coordinated entry and equity, making sure that the COC is using coordinated entry. And I think next slide.
So that this slide here I added actually. So this is kind of a heads up slide. So a big portion of the collaborative application really focused on these three areas: outreach, coordinated entry, and equity. And how do all three of those things work together? So after we get through this process, you're going to be hearing a lot from us about how we're implementing this work moving forward. I think that that was one of the issues Sid had raised. We have maybe lots of plans, we can speak eloquently about things, but we really got to get everything into action and moving. And the collaborative application really brought that home. So I just wanted to emphasize kind of these pieces of the collaborative application, because as soon as we're done, then it's all about getting to work with going forward, kind of anticipating that since these are the things stressed, that we're going to have to be ready for it, in the following years. So I just wanted to share that because Julie didn't add the slide, I did. And that's it for those slides.
All right, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Meg. I see Allison has her hand up.
Hey, Julie, just for clarifying, there was a COC bonus amount and then there was a DV bonus amount. Are they two different projects? They were pretty close in the dollar value. I saw on that one where it had the cumulative totals. And I'm just trying to clarify, did we put forward a DV project and did we put forward a bonus project, and are they already ranked and in the list?
So yes and yes. So there's a bonus, a DV bonus and a bonus project in the tier 1 list.
And was the COC bonus one the one labeled the VOA expansion?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else with any questions or any comments?
I just want to thank Julie and Helen and Rank and Review. This was a really fast, big lift. And this was Julie's first NOFO, and this is Helen's first NOFO without a Taylor or Jasmine, and it's my very first one as well. So it felt like we got the super advanced course, our first go out on a really compressed timeline. So we thank you all for your patience, working with us, telling us of your experiences. So we learned a lot as we did this. We are really, really happy to get it through this point. And then we will be really, really happy when it's in eSnaps and submitted. And just so you all know, the coalition is closed on the 30th. So like, we're going to put that to bed and we're going to be done with it. We're going to take a day off. So, but thank you all so much for your help with this and for the wonderful project submissions.
Thank you so much. And yes, echo all of that. eSnaps is one of my favorite systems ever to be in. Sarcastic eye roll emoji right there. And I think we finished ours yesterday, so I was pretty excited to hit submit on that button too and be done with it for a little while. So the next step, if no one has any other questions or comments, is that the COC will vote. Sorry, back one slide. The COC will vote on approving this application. So I would look for a motion to approve the collaborative application for the NOFO.
Hey, Jess, if people are involved in it, should we refrain from voting?
That is a good question. Maybe for our compliance person.
On behalf of the Compliance Committee and its Rank and Review team, I move adoption of the collaborative application, and all participants in the continuum of care may vote on this motion.
Second.
Thank you, Sid. Have motion by Sid, seconded by Ruth. I'm going to ask for people to vote in the chat so we can have a written record of the vote. So in the chat, just go ahead and type your name and your vote, yay or nay, or yes or no. And now I'm going to try to watch them really fast. All right, I'm seeing votes slow down and I didn't see any that didn't say yes. So I am going to happily say that the COC has approved that motion to approve and submit the collaborative application for the NOFO. Yay.
And our thanks to the review committee. That's a lot of
Yes.
work. I've done it
Oh.
before.
Absolutely. All right, we are moving to member and public comment. We do ask that you limit your comments in this section to 3 minutes. We did not have anyone pre-registered, so if you'd like to share a comment or ask a question, you can put it in the chat box, or you can just go ahead and unmute right now to share. Scrolling through, I don't
This
see
is
any.
Nancy.
Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
Hello. I just wanted to let everyone know that Anchorage was happy to host a part of FEMA who visited the community this week. And I'm putting the section that visited us. Many of the groups on this call are local response organizations for this part of FEMA, and they chose Anchorage to come and have their board meeting in our community. Their board meeting is today, in fact, and it was awesome. And thank you to everyone who hosted them for a site visit this week. I also am happy to report, I want to tag on to the happy moment about Guest House Home for Good, which is our local, Jonathan put a really cool report in the chat about Los Angeles's Pay for Success. We actually have a Pay for Success in Anchorage that focuses on homelessness. And I'm happy to report that we moved in 8 new people to the guest house this week. And there were some already there. So we have a total of 13 Home for Good folks who've come straight from street to housing and are doing really well. So thank you all for the work on that.
That is very, very exciting. Both pieces. All right, not seeing anything else, we will move to the next item, which is good news and celebrations. Well, I guess we kind of shared a little bit of good news celebrations, but anyone else who has any other good news or celebrations they want to share? All right, moving to the upcoming advocacy opportunities. I'm first going to highlight a few opportunities from next week because we just heard and talked about the work of the Emergency Shelter Task Force, and I want to highlight that there is a special assembly meeting on Monday at Assembly Chambers, and I'm going to look to somebody to nod for me. I saw one public notice that said 4 o'clock and one that said 6 o'clock, so I'm not 100% on the time of this meeting. But there is a special meeting of the assembly on Monday, and then the regular assembly meeting on Tuesday at Assembly Chambers at 5 o'clock.
The special meeting starts at 6 p.m. on
6
Monday.
p.m.
There's a meeting before that that has nothing to do, it's 2 separate meetings. So the
Oh,
meeting
okay.
has nothing to do with the emergency sheltering items.
Perfect. So go at 4 if you want to hear about something not related to housing at all. Otherwise, go at 6. But I would just encourage everyone to share any thoughts or opinions you have at any time with any assembly agenda items. You can send emails to the assembly body as a whole. You can sign up for public testimony over the phone if you're not able to go in person, or you can go down in person and either be a part of initial audience participation, provide public testimony on any public testimony item on the agenda, or at the very end of the meeting, time permitting, there is final audience participation also. In October, the advocacy opportunities are the October Housing, Homelessness, and Neighborhood Development, or HAND Commission meeting. Those are held monthly on the first Wednesday of the month at 4 p.m. You can participate via Teams, or you can go down to the Health Department Conference Room, which is at 825 L Street on the 4th floor. October 11th is the first October regular assembly meeting. Again, 5 o'clock, Lusac Library. The second regular assembly meeting for October is October 25th. The Assembly Committee on Housing and Homelessness meets monthly on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, so the October meeting will be on October 19th. And then our next meeting, October 27th, we meet on the 4th Thursday of the month from 4 to 5 p.m. We'll just remind everyone in advance and continue reminding people that on November and December, we do not meet on the 4th Thursday of the month because of the holidays. We meet on the 3rd Thursday of the month. So I'll highlight those changing dates when we do this again in October. So if anyone has any other advocacy opportunities they'd like to share at this time, I see in the chat there's been a couple links shared that have the agenda items for those assembly meetings as well. I see Sharon has a note that there is a special assembly meeting on Sunday at 2 p.m. also. Not seeing any other advocacy items. I just want to again thank everyone for being here. Thanks for hanging in on a very full, very busy meeting, and I'm so happy to have so many people here, and so happy to, oh, I have a calendar item that we just discussed at the Advisory Council work session. October 11th, you will be getting a meeting notice. We will be having a special COC meeting that we will be using to approve the special notice of funding opportunity. So today we approved the collaborative application for the regular NOFO, and on October 11th at a special meeting, we will approve the collaborative application for the special NOFO. And this is because of the time frame and how it was released, that it really had such a short turnaround. We couldn't fit them both into the time frame to get them approved at this meeting. So we will be having a special meeting for the approval of that item. So on that note, it is 4:58. We will finish 2 minutes early. Thanks everyone for being here, and I will see you all October 11th.
Hey, Jessica, is there a time for that meeting?
Oh, sorry, 4 o'clock. From 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It will be a short meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.